All right, guys, we are live. This is the Sherdog recap show for UFC 310, UFC 310. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, before I get to you, I want to say a shout out to all the guys and gals in the chat. You guys are always great. We try to get to as many comments as possible. Thank you guys for staying up late with us. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Sometimes we hop on one of these, we have no idea what we're going to talk about for an hour to an hour and a half, and then other times we hop on and we not sure whether we can keep it to 2 hours. This is one of the latter kind. There's a lot to talk about tonight. A lot of fights, a lot of stuff happened. Yeah. We just lost you, Keith, your voice.
Sorry. This is actually, I think this is our first me and you doing a pay-per-view in like, I think it's been since UFC 307. You know that?
Wow.
Because 309, oh no, wait, I think it's going back further than that. 309, I was in New York. 308, we didn't do it at all, unfortunately. Yeah, that must have been 307. What the hell am I talking about? Anyways, let's get right into it. We had two massive fights on the top of the card. Alexandre Pantoja defending his UFC title, defending the home turf of the UFC, as there was a Japanese invasion. Kai Asakura bringing his two-time championship into the UFC, making his UFC debut, fighting for the title. And Alexandre Pantoja just ran right through him. So there's certain guys that I just love. Alex Volkov is a guy that I've always loved. Randy Couture, one of those guys. I tend to kind of lean towards American wrestlers in general because I spent all day at a wrestling tournament today. I'm going to spend all day at a wrestling tournament tomorrow. I'm going to have like 4 hours sleep, 3 hours sleep. But if it comes to Brazilians, man, Pantoja is right on the top of my list. I love this dude.
Oh, completely agree. It's hard to find fault with him. Not many fighters stay this exciting once they've hit the top level.
Oh my God, he's
they
so
get
good.
Conservative. The competition catches up with them. Whether through their own faults or just the way the division's going. Whether you're talking about George St. Pierre, you're talking about John Jones, where the fights aren't quite as exciting anymore once they're the champ. That is not the case for Pantoja. He's everything I like about Rafael dos Anjos as a Brazilian fighter, only with better athleticism, more finishing instincts, and he's a flyweight. So that's win-win-win for Pantoja.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's holding the title for a fairly long time now.
Second to Demetrius Johnson in all-time consecutive title defenses now. I mean, it's a jump from 3 to 10 or
sure.
whatever, DJ, but
yeah. What I love about this guy is he's such an incredibly, insanely good grappler that somehow that overshadows how good his striking is.
Yes.
When was the last time Pantoja had fought someone and didn't rock them with a punch? Didn't buckle them at one point with a punch?
That's a really good point. And it's something we talk about with flyweight, where obviously it's a super high skilled division, but at the same time, the top fighters are mostly so aggro that they get caught. Like there's no Demetrius Johnson anymore that nobody lays a finger on him. All the Moreno, Royval, Figueiredo when he was still in the division. Pantoja obviously is a guy that's fought all those other guys at least twice each. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And yeah, Pantoja just absolutely rules.
Yeah, so one thing we don't do, like I had an okay day. I went 10-4. I missed none two of my pretty big upset picks. Though in fairness, I think both guys really showed out. Even though they lost, my two big upset picks was Ian Machado Gerry and Aljamain Sterling. They fell flat for me. What do you know your record for the night?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I went 8-6.
Okay.
Now, having said that, we made these picks last Sunday night. If we were making these picks this morning, I would have flipped from Smith to Reyes, seeing what kind of shape Smith was in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I would have switched Rakhmonov pick, and I would have switched Sterling pick, and I picked Max Griffin, and I forget what the other one. I lost another one. I can't remember. I'll get to that later.
Gary over Rakhmonov. Well, no, that's right.
Yeah,
You said
I said that one.
You took Gane instead of Volkov.
Yeah, Gane won though.
Oh, that's. See, I'm already thinking the Volkov one. I'm skipping ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
that was a big long intro to saying one thing we don't do is when we get a fight correct, when we hardly ever like pound our chest. I told you so. We're not those people. Because we've both been doing this for a really long time. That we know that you're gonna have a bad streak. The bad nights are gonna come.
Oh, of course. And it's the same when I get a terrible pick. Like when somebody shows up in the comments and they're like, hey, that nerd on the right pick such and such. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that makes me feel as bad as you think it does.
Yeah, totally.
Thousands of fights, you're gonna get some terrible ones, dude.
That's right. I've been watching fights since like 1996. Like, you're not gonna hurt my feelings, but so this guy's a casual. He doesn't even know how to pick. But the reason why I brought that up is when I was listening to people talk about this fight, everybody was saying Pantoja should not stand up with Asakura. And I think me and you, the only person I heard, were like, that gave him a really good chance to stand and bang with Asakura and do well.
Yeah, I mean, Asakura, kind of like Pantoja and the other top flyweights you just talked about, his glory run in Ryzen, he got clocked pretty hard.
Yes.
Pretty much anytime he fought a decent guy. He did a 2-fight series with Manel Kopp that UFC viewers should be acquainted with now, and Kopp zoned him the second time they fought because Asakura can be caught on the feet.
Yeah.
It's hard to think this about like a 5'8" dude, but he's a flyweight with tall man defense sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, he's such his action style that leaves him to be countered, and I'll get to a point in a second. But also, it's not just part A, it's part B, which is Pantoja's striking is very, very good. Like he's, what he is? He's the ultimate. He has to a fault. Guys try to even the score. Pantoja does that too, but what I mean by that is, like, you hit me, I have to get it back. But I really discovered it's not Pantoja has to like even the score where, like, you hit me a big shot, now I hit you back. It's more of, I'm not gonna let you get going. Like, I'm not gonna let you get in your rhythm and start picking your shots, which is so impressive. What I love it what I watched in the first round of these two guys, I guess again, both these guys are so fearless. One, Pantoja is fearless in the sense that he didn't care if he got hit. Like, he knew. I mean, he didn't change his style. Everyone says, "Oh, yeah, you can't stand and bang Mascara," and he's like, "No, that's what I do. I stand in the pocket, I throw big bombs, and I got really good hand speed and such deceiving power. I'm going to land my big shots." And then Asakura was fearless in the sense that he wasn't scared of putting himself in bad positions. First fight, UFC main event, Las Vegas, like all the things you think that maybe this guy could come out a little gun shy, a little, bright lights. And I know obviously he fought in Japan and like that's a big market. And I get that, but still it's a different market, and he's still throwing flying knees, stepping knees, swinging for the fences. Like he wasn't worried about, getting him crazy scrambles. And that would made this fight like from, I don't know how long the fight lasted, 7 minutes or something. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Like, I was so juiced. I mean, I'm always juiced up for obviously a main event, but this one, I knew something spectacular was going to happen. Like, from the second their first exchange to the very last, I mean, it was so spectacular. Talk about what was going through your head when you were watching this fight.
The exact same thing you said just there was what I was going to say. And the fact that even though Pantoja was getting the better of, I mean, if you broke the fight down into 60-second blocks, Pantoja probably won every 60-second block of the fight. But I had the same feeling as you that anything could happen at any moment. And it seemed almost as likely that Asakura was just going to crush Pantoja, with a huge hook or a knee out of nowhere, and you've got a new champ. even though he had been losing the fight. So yeah, absolutely. This fight would have been watchable even if that finish had come in the middle of the 5th round and Pantoja was up 4 rounds to none at the time. I would never have lost that feeling that Asakura is 1 shot away, which is rare at flyweight. It's the one thing that flyweight doesn't have on the level of the heavier weight classes. Even if there are knockout artists in that division now, it's not the heavyweight thing where pretty much everybody can put you out with 1 punch.
Yeah, and Pantoja's like coming at you style, blitzing, balls to the wall style. It seems like he's throwing caution to the wind, that he's not a game plan, but there's a big set strategy by him coming out as aggressive. Like he always comes out aggressive, but it seemed like he came out even more aggressive. Well, I think there's a lot of things. One was obviously put your opponent on the back foot. So, guy's a big power puncher. He's got to have to like throw reactionary punches instead of like really step into his shots. Second thing is, again, first time in the UFC, let's put the pressure on you right away. Can you handle it? Sometimes you get that moment where you're like, all of a sudden they're like, you're in the fight without realizing it even started. 3, the drain Asakura. The way Asakura fights, he's going to load up. He's going to throw big shots, drain him. And then the 4th one, he just had a huge cut. His first time down to flyweight 125, and I think it was 7 years.
Almost 8, yeah.
Yeah, almost 8 years. Check that gas tank right away. Because Pantoja can fight that. Even when he looks tired, he finds ways to go. He's fighting. I mean, I think about the Brendan Moreno fight. Like he's fighting deep in the fight, back and forth moments, still landing takedowns, doing the things he does. So I thought like Pantoja also doesn't get credit for game planning. I know that's not just him; that's an entire team behind it. But I was blown away by Pantoja's like performance tonight.
Yes, whoever it was in the chat that said American Top Team is riding high right now is absolutely right. And we kind of take them for granted just because they're maybe the biggest major team in the sport, just in terms of the number of pro fighters they have in the gym every week. But then, I mean, you and I are old enough in the sport to remember like 2006 when everyone was wondering, man, is this huge gym American Top Team ever actually going to have a UFC champ?
Yeah.
You don't have that worry anymore. But yeah, like it's easy to take them for granted just because they're not the hot new thing, but their top fighters have all looked incredible over the last 6 months or so. Just about.
Yeah, the old narrative on American Top Team was, well, they have a ton of people. Like it's all like quantity over quality.
Yeah.
They never had the top guy, and now that's not the case.
It's like club wrestling or local MMA where there's one team that like half the cheering section is just in their t-shirts because they actually go to the gym. They're like the equivalent of that at the UFC level. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. And I feel like this might be like low hanging fruit, but is there even a debate who's the second best flyweight anymore?
There must be, because I don't know who you're referring to.
I'm talking about Pantoja as the second best ever.
Oh, ever? I thought you meant right now.
No, ever.
Oh, that's a really good question, because you could take someone like even like Joseph Benavidez and line up the people he beat and how, and his resume is incredible. But Pantoja now has not only done something Benavidez never could, he's defended the title 3 times, and his list of people he's beaten and how is may even have passed Joey B at this point. No, I'm with you. I think Pantoja's probably the second best flyweight of all time, and it helps that the other person that might be in the conversation, Moreno, is behind Pantoja because of the 0-3 head-to-head at this point. So yeah.
It's so impressive. They talked, and I didn't confirm this, but I'm taking the broadcast team for their word that based on, and of course they're talking about the UFC rankings, not the Sherdog rankings, that he's in the guys currently in the top 10. He's got 9 wins against guys currently in the top 10. And I know there's a couple of those like Moreno a couple times and Royval a couple times. And it's not 9 people out of 10.
No, I joked in the Sherdog chat because the first time he said it, a couple of us interpreted it as him saying that he'd beaten the other 9 of the top 10. And I'm like, did they like bring Wilson Hayes back and put him in the rankings just to like make DC not be a liar? Like, no, but 9 wins against them, that sounds very much in line. Yeah.
Yeah. Dane Fox throws up his top 5: Demetrius Johnson, Pantoja, Moreno, Figueiredo, Benavidez, and Cejudo. Man, that's probably about exactly how I have it.
Yeah.
I'd have to. I mean, Benavidez, Cejudo. I might have to look at that. Benavidez has a bigger, longer success at flyweight, but Cejudo did win the title, but and had a title defense. So
now,
yeah, but I mean that's as broad as pretty good as it goes.
The funny thing is, like, yeah, we have a top 6 here thanks to Dane, Sherdog contributor. Always good to have you hang with us. But says the guy that I could see a screen cap of him like hosting a show with him like 3 weeks ago. It'll be interesting to watch the gap narrow because, like, you know, I'm a good bit older than you are, and when I was in my 20s, the gap between, let's say, Jerry Rice and the second best receiver of all time was wider than the similar gap between the best and second best player at any position. And then at this point, some people have caught up, you know, like people like Randy Moss and Calvin Johnson have at least made it like an interesting conversation. You know, I expect something like that will happen with Demetrius Johnson over the next 10 years or so. Like, he'll still be the greatest flyweight of all time, but it won't be this ridiculous thing like, you know, there's a huge gulf between him and the next one. Like, because we're going to talk about what's next for Pantoja, but the names that I have for him for probably his next 3 fights, he's going to be very heavily favored against, like, in my mind, as well as by the odds.
So
I mean, a flyweight couldn't fall off the shelf at any, off the cliff at any time. He's like 34 in a speed kills division, but dude, this guy could defend the title 3 times next year, and I wouldn't blink an eye.
Yeah, I want to do something we'd never do. One thing me and you never do is we never debate the pound for pound rankings. Like, it's not really our thing, but let's do it. All right. I'm pulling up the Sherdog pound rankings. This is as of I pulled the wrong one. I pulled up October. There has to be a November one in there, but
there might not be. We only update the pound for pound one when one of the top 15, or at least one of the top 10 fights. You know.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Pantoja is currently 6th in our rankings. I'm going to throw up, and I'm going to say the word absurd. There's 2 guys ahead of him right now in the rankings that it's to me, it's not even a debate.
And you and I are both on the Sherdog rankings panel. I know who you're going to say, and I agree.
You know both guys I'm going to say?
Let's see.
And I'm the biggest shill for both these guys.
Jones is definitely one of them.
Yes.
And Volkanovski is the other.
Volkanovski is probably in my top 5 favorite fighters ever. Maybe higher. I love Alexandre Volkanovski. I've met him a bunch of times. The guy's never changed. He's the same person as he was as a prelim fighter, as he was a champion. Like, just a cool ass dude.
Mm-hmm.
You can't lose 2 fights in a row. I know he's lost to studs. He lost 3 of his last 4. He's lost to absolute megastars. You know, our 2 top guys in the pound for pound rankings. But still, you can't be over Pantoja if you lost 3 out of the last 4 fights.
Right.
Okay. Oh, was it 3 in a row? I can't remember. Is it? Or did he win a fight in between? Like, yeah, he won a fight in between, right? Yeah, he fought Ortega. He beat Ortega. Yeah. And there really might be a case that Volkanovski is the 3rd best fighter in the world. Could be, but still. And I'm sorry. I know Dana White's gonna hate me. He's like he told Drake Riggs, go fuck himself. That was kind of funny, but Dana White does not understand how pound for pound rankings works. He goes by like all-time rankings. Like, he's the guy that if he was ranking quarterbacks right now in the NFL, he'd somehow put Tom Brady number 1. I was like, not in the league anymore, dude. Like, he can't be the best. Or like, you know what? Would be a better example? If he was ranking quarterbacks right now, he'd have Aaron Rodgers number 1.
Yeah, because he's the historically greatest quarterback still playing.
Yeah, like, oh, he won this MVP and that. I mean, I don't know. Patrick Mahomes might be up there, but you get my point. Yeah. You get my point. Okay. You can't. He's won 2 fights, and I don't want to go too far into this line because it's been debated, but he's won 2 fights in, like, I don't know, God knows how long. The 2 fights he won, he beat Saragon, and that was a very impressive win.
Yeah.
But Ciryl Gane was, not a pound for pound guy. And the ghost is Stipe Miocic.
Yep.
Compared to what Pantoja has done.
It's not even close.
It's not even close. To me, the debate is between Pantoja and Alex Pereira.
For the number 3 spot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, does anybody disagree with me? I'm sure people. I know Bob Simpson is going to say something ridiculous, but besides Bob Simpson,
yeah, I'm waiting for anybody in the chat to like pop in with your disagreement if you have one. Otherwise, yeah.
Let's get to matchmaking. You said that Pantoja is going to be a big favorite over the guy that you think deserves a shot at Pantoja next. Let's hear it.
All right. I mean, one of the major reasons Asakura got this fight in the first place is that everybody in the UFC flyweight division that's in the like top 15, he's either beaten twice already or is coming off a loss. The one person you can't really say either of those things about right now like that is Kai Kara-France. And considering the way this fight went, even though Pantoja would be a large favorite, even though I would expect him to win, all the same reasons that you were on the edge of your seat with Asakura in there pretty much hold true for Kai Kara-France. He has numbing power for that division, is not afraid to use it, and against a hittable opponent, he's always in the fight. So, yeah, I give him Kai Kara-France.
Yeah, I mean, based on who's up there, I'm okay with that. But I'm giving Pantoja an A for his performance, and it's hard to get an A+ because A+ you have to have a perfect night. You have to run through your opponent, and then you have to get on the mic, and you got to say something and promote yourself and win the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did. I tweeted out, I put like a little spoiler, a little teaser, I should say, that I'm going to pick somebody that nobody was going to be thinking of to fight Pantoja next. I was like, oh, people gonna be like, oh, in the chat, be like Kai Kara-France and Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno and all this. And I was gonna be like, nope, he should have done this. I tweet this out, and then my boy does it. He gets on the mic and he calls out Demetrius Johnson. I don't know the situation. I don't know if it's possible. He still might have some kind of like, I know you're retired, but he could have some kind of contract thing. And I know he's doing his podcasting and this, that. But Demetrius Johnson always wanted huge FU money. You ever really want to invest in flyweight, do it one time. Because I don't know if he comes in favored over Demetrius Johnson.
That's an interesting question.
It's a real, I don't know. I mean, that's the fight to do. Go call the GOAT. Remember in Gladiator, you saw the first Gladiator movie, right?
Yeah, I saw the first one. Mm-hmm.
Remember when like Maximus is killing everybody, then all of a sudden they go and they find the guy that was like the greatest gladiator ever, and they bring him back, and they have like, that's what Demetrius Johnson would be. You're bringing the GOAT back. Guy who never, 10 title defenses, the guy who no one ever touched, even the guy, the way he lost the title was a controversial thing. You show the bounce trap, you show all this. You have Demetrius Johnson saying, oh, the guy that was like 5th in the rankings when I was killing everybody's going to come and beat me, the greatest of all time, 10 title defenses. That's what I do, man. I don't leave. I go to his house. Like, Moneyball, when they have to go to the guy's house, I'm like, he'd jump in his pool, and I'm like freaking coming up underneath from the pool. Like, I am like, he would have to, if I was Dana White, Demetrius Johnson would have to get a restraining order against me. Everything that they didn't do with Demetrius Johnson when he was champion, I would do with him. That's the fight I would do.
I love it. If our powers extend to making that happen to people that are outside the UFC, I'm fully in support of it.
Yeah. Put in the chat, who do you guys think would win right now, Demetrius Johnson or Pantoja? I don't know. I mean, you know me.
Yeah.
Who's a bigger like Demetrius Johnson guy than I am? Like, I am. I was when I first started in the rankings, people probably got so sick of me arguing for Demetrius Johnson to be higher in the pound rankings. But Let's so Mark Adams says Pantoja, Dev says DJ, Kyle Lahi says DJ. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm in report.
RC Kim throws out another suggestion that's worth mentioning. I would love to see Horiguchi back in the.
Let's take his main training partner. There's a little
That's
backstory.
right. Like what? I mean, he's, yeah. Like Horiguchi used to bounce around, but he's been at ATT for a while now. They've trained together a lot. That's a good point.
Marcus Mustard is picking Mighty Mouse. Dane Fox is taking DJ. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like the chat is split. It's almost like 50-50. Or even now, some people are even leaning, it might be like 60-40 DJ. This is why you got to do that fight. I hope somebody in the press asks Dana about it, if that's possible. And I hope Dana doesn't, I don't know, just go get Demetrius Johnson. Find a way to make it happen. What would you do with Asakura?
Problem is, he performed exactly like I expected. He got overwhelmed, but there were moments of, kind of like, oh, is he going to pull it off? So I still don't know where he settles in at this division. The one thing I do know is that he can make 125 with no issue. So I'm thinking we give him someone that is on the outskirts of the top 10 and is in no immediate line towards a title shot. Because that's the problem in the first place, is there are no fresh challengers for Pantoja. So I'm not giving him an up-and-coming guy. I'm giving him a guy that's either in a holding pattern or on the way down, either Alex Perez or Tim Elliott.
Okay. Yeah. I was going
like
a little
Perez,
high that.
Has lost like 4 or 5, but all against top 10ish guys. Like, who you got? What do you got?
I was going to go with Bruno Silva if he beats Spinal Cop.
Beautiful. If Cop wins, are you interested in a Cop trilogy fight?
Yeah, I am. I mean, they both got to win. Why not? The other one that I was thinking of, say he wants to move back up to 135, because I know he can make 125. I just don't know how well he can perform. Getting beat by Pantoja and getting subbed by Pantoja doesn't mean that you can't perform well at 125.
Right.
To me, means you're not the best guy in the world at 125. So I was looking at 135. It would make sense. I'm like, you know what? Go against another former flyweight and put him against Figueiredo.
Okay. You'll threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, let's guys swing for the fences. All right, let's move on. I think heading into the week, what was the biggest fight was not the main event. It was actually the co-main event. And you know how I know? You know how I know it is?
How?
Because when is the media day, Jose Young from MMA Fighting, whichever fight he asked if people, every single person, what's their opinion on. That's usually he asked the main event. This one he was asking, who do you think wins the co-main event? Ian Machado Gerry took on Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov won a unanimous decision. 48-47, pretty easy. That's how you had it?
I had it 48-47. I gave Garry rounds 3 and round 5. I don't think 48-47 reflects how much of a step ahead Rakhmonov was for most of the fight. If we judge this as a whole fight, it felt like a pretty straightforward, not completely one-sided, but kind of one-sided win for Rakhmonov. But if you're scoring it round by round on the 10-point must system, then all you really need is 2 rounds where you barely eke it out and 3 where you lose solidly, and it looks like a very close fight.
Wow, dude. We are way off on our analysis. I feel the complete opposite.
Oh, okay. Hit me.
I feel like if you scored the fight for as a whole, I'm giving Machado Gerry that.
Really?
I'm looking at this is a basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
All right. First round, nobody did anything. Shavkat won because he controlled a little bit. Okay. He's up 6-3. Okay. Second round, almost the same thing. All right. He's up 14-12. Third round, Garry has his best round. All right. He's up 28-25.
Okay.
Yeah, even the fourth round, Shavkat got some takedowns, but didn't really do much with them. But I'll give him that round. So 35-32.
Okay.
And then for some reason, it's a 5-round. five. Yeah. Help me out. It's not the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And then Machado Gerry wins that last quarter by 30.
So you feel like the whole fight felt pretty even to you?
Oh yeah, like I feel that I actually feel like Garry had the better showing, and Rakhmonov had the better strategy.
Interesting. Well, because like obviously, you know, I laid out my overall you know, assertion on who I thought won the fight there, and on rewatch I might feel differently about it, but that takes a backseat to what my real observation about this fight was, and that's that there were a couple of fights on this card where both fighters' stock kind of fell, and here is one where halfway through the third round, so pretty much at the dead middle point of the fight, I was like, Bilal Muhammad destroys either of these guys.
Oh yeah, I thought Bilal was going to beat these guys just because I'm like super high in Bilal.
Sure.
But yeah, I told, especially, I mean, Rakhmonov, I think like so many people were like, oh my, Rakhmonov's going to kill Bilal. And I'm like, I don't think so, dude.
No.
No, don't get me wrong. He's got the skills to beat anybody.
Sure.
Especially with that finishing ability. I mean, he's finished all but one guy. I thought Ian gave Rakhmonov the fight he wanted and still almost won that fight.
Okay.
I was watching them. I was rooting for Machado Gerry because to me it's always like more fun to talk about. That's usually what I root for, and I think Machado Gerry is really fun to. And I'm sitting there watching the first round. I'm like, dude, if there was a moment, the second round, and if I was like Ian Machado Gerry's like corner, I'd be very upset. They broke, and there was about 30 seconds left, and like Ravkat was like controlling him. It wasn't really doing much. So that round was still like a big flurry, and you could steal the round. And the round just ends by like Garry like throwing a jab, like a low kick, and I'm like, dude, if you just came out and threw like a 10-punch combination, shit, you could have missed 8 of those punches.
Mm-hmm.
But it just looks good. You could have stole that round.
I can see that.
And I would so it was very frustrating. But on the flip side, there was some things Machado Gerry did that I'm like, even the haters can't say, like, yo, this guy's good. I mean, his takedown defense was pretty on point. I mean, yeah, he got to give up takedowns late, but even his scrambling, his back take, I mean, he almost submitted. I mean, we talk about who's closer to stopping the fight. I mean, it was Machado Gerry.
Oh yeah, I mean, where he had the body triangle, was working on the rear naked choke for a while, even after the point where you're like, okay, I can see the direction they're going. He's not going to finish the choke without like some sort of scramble and reset. It made it a pretty obvious round for him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how close he actually was to finishing that submission. It looked like it was like a neck crank, and that's always tricky. Some people can, and not all neck cranks are the same. Like obviously, like you go to Robert Whitaker one where your like teeth is coming out and he dislocated his jaw or something like this. That's different than, you know, someone's getting it over and just squeezing and it hurts. Yeah, I mean, Shavkat's good. Don't get me wrong. And his sub defense was impressive, but yeah, I'm not sold. I mean, was he 19-0 now? 19-0,
19-0,
18 stoppages. I mean, like, obviously, like, what else can he do to sell you? I guess stopping Garry, but I don't know. I didn't think his performance against Wonderboy was that great. I mean, he got a stoppage, but it wasn't that incredible. The Neil Magny one hasn't aged well. The Jeff Neal one hasn't aged well. Dev is throwing out Jack Della Maddalena would give Shavkat fits. He may.
Just in the JDM doesn't have the same size or physical tools as Garry, but if JDM and his team were watching this fight, they've already come up with a better game plan, and JDM would stick to it better than Garry. And that might be all that it takes to be the guy that hands Shavkat Rakhmonov his first loss. You know, is a legit top 10 guy that sees the issues with his game and is willing to craft a strategy around them.
Yeah. And I think based on this, like people who watched this fight and picked Shavkat before expected Shavkat to run through Ian Garry.
Yes.
Like there was kind of two ways people pick a fight. Either Shavkat runs through Ian Garry or Ian Garry wins, but it's gonna be a super close fight. Like the fight we had. But maybe he wins the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. If you're Belal Muhammad and you watch this fight, obviously Belal Muhammad is the champion of the world. He's gonna be confident no matter what. But he's gotta be more confident now, no?
I would think so. And obviously, Belal is one of the ultimate overachiever grinders in the sport. Doesn't take anything for granted, but I'm sure at least he's like, okay, I've won all these fights by outworking and outthinking my opponents. I can do the same to these guys. Just got to get back to the grindstone and, figure these guys out.
Yeah, and if Machado Gerry can take you back and almost submit you, what am I going to do to you?
Exactly. Yep.
So, people are talking about in the chat if Colby beats Joaquin Buckley, he'll probably get a title shot. That actually might be true. The Trumpster might be calling his buddy, but
if Buckley goes all Buckley on Covington and becomes the first guy to knock him out cold with something that sneaks its way onto the year-end awards lists, he might jump the line. Who knows? Like it was extremely smart of Shavkat Rakhmonov to get Belal Muhammad into the cage a week before those guys fought, get face to face, shake hands, make Joe Rogan acknowledge what is happening in front of everybody.
Yeah,
it's like
it was smart.
He's Xeroxing receipts right now.
Yeah, and the UFC is in Joe Rogan's ear, and they're like, yeah, tell him to come in. Like they have that. Like the ones like all of a sudden they have a stare down. That's the next match. And the other ones like guy calls the champion, and everyone thinks that might be the next match. And then there's no stare down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good move. What are you doing with Ian Machado Gerry? Because I don't feel like his stock really. I mean, obviously you lose the O is always going to hurt you, but I think there's something I don't know. I've gone this rant a million times. I don't understand the hate on this guy. I really do. This guy loves his wife. Like I don't know. But
he's tested me by walking out to Layla by Eric Clapton because it's like one of Clapton's worst songs. But
what are you talking about? It's a great song. What are you talking about?
At least he was in the cage by the time the endless piano like outro hit.
Oh my god!
No, I'm with you. And for all I said about it, feeling more lopsided to me in the moment than a 48-47 fight. By the same token, Garry fought a lot better than a plus 300 underdog is supposed to fight. I'm giving him the loser of Covington and Buckley. They're both big personality guys that both the type of fights that could be another co-main on a pay-per-view or headline the best fight night of the year. And they're, most importantly, all bullshit aside, I'm really interested to see him fight either of the guys.
Yeah, so am I. But that's why I'm taking the winner of that matchup.
That works for me as well, especially because then that gets that guy out of the begging for a fight with Muhammad.
Buckley, if he wins, you have the backstory. They already booked. They were supposed to fight, and then obviously Colby, there's a huge, that would ultimately be the best thing to happen to UFC.
Oh, if Colby wins. You know what, Colby, I don't claim to be a mind reader, but you know what I think Colby Covington probably really wants? He wants to beat Buckley and not get the title shot so he can complain about it and go fight someone like Ian Garry 4 months down the road. Because if I'm him, I don't want to spend one of my last 2 or 3 fights on Belal Muhammad. He's going to make me look terrible. I would rather scream that I was robbed and, I don't know, call the UFC matchmaking a liberal conspiracy and then go fight Ian Garry and make a bunch of money in the spring.
Yeah, apparently I'm old because I always see the word cuck and I think I know what it means, but I'm not really sure. What the fuck does that mean? Like a wimp, like a simp? What do they call it? Like
it's what we would have called a simp 10 years before. Yeah, just a man who is emasculated by being too obviously in love with his wife, which we're not going to go down the route of social commentary. There is a lot that Keith and I probably don't agree with in terms of life view and politics, but I think we both agree that letting people know that you love your wife a little too much should not be a hanging offense.
I don't get.
I'm embarrassed because Keith has a picture of her behind him, and I don't.
Yeah, there's a picture of my where I always miss out because the cameras are like right above my hat is my wife, and that was actually a picture of the day my son was born.
Oh,
or actually, yeah, they had like the hospital has a photographer and they take pictures of you. And that was like 9 years old. But anyway, that's my wife. Like, I love my wife too. I guess if I was a fight, you guys all hate me too.
Okay. All right, people in the chat, we know the literal definition in the dictionary of cuckold. We're talking about the social connotations of it in the 2020s.
Okay.
That's all. We know the definition of cuckold. Yes.
Ben's being very professional. I don't think I won't be. He's not watching people have sex with his wife. Okay,
no.
I mean,
if he wants to, I'm sure he can find footage somewhere, but that's not the point.
yeah. But more important debate, and I got to throw this out to the chat. Who was correct, me or Ben? I say Layla is I'm not talking about entrance with his wife. I'm talking about just generally songs on the radio. You scan in. Layla comes on the fast version, not the slow version, not the acoustic version, which is still not bad, but the original version. I say it's a fantastic song. You stop the playlist. You stop scrolling and you listen. Ben says it's terrible.
I think it's the 1971 version of like a Tool song today, where not only does it suck, but it occupies that whole radio station for like 9 minutes. Ugh.
Oh my Lord, Ben. You've made some bad things, comments on this show over the years. This might be the top one, man. This is, listen, I always wondered what was going to break up the Shillan and Duffy. This might be it. It might be Eric Clapton. All right, let's move on. Probably the most controversial moment of the night. Ciryl Gane took on Alexander Volkov. Ciryl Gane winning a split decision. I had it 29-28 Volkov, but I don't think it's a terrible decision. Do you agree with one? Like, do you agree with the Volkov one? Do you agree with two that no, Volkov won? Volkov won, and it was clearly him. 3, no, Gane win, or 4. Keith, you confused me with all the options, and I don't remember what I was going to
say. Every decision that I disagree with is not a robbery. Every decision that is objectively wrong by the current scoring standards in the sport is not necessarily a robbery. Having said that, this, for a fight that was scored 28-29 when I scored it 29-28, is one of the worst of that kind, just because I didn't think any of the 3 individual rounds were tough to score. Okay. Like, it's not like I thought Volkov won all 3 rounds and like Adelaide Bird came back with 27-30.
Okay.
But it's just like it was a very straightforward 29-28 Volkov fight for me. It's just, I would love to know which round the judges gave to Gane that I gave to Volkov, but unfortunately the homie at MMA Decisions saw that Adelaide Bird was on the job tonight, and I think he just took the whole night off. He usually is very much like right on top of things on pay-per-view nights, but he disappeared for hours, I think, just because out of concern for his own blood pressure.
Yeah, I checked it. There's nothing after the battle over Brown decision. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming the 3rd because, Volkov got a takedown and then, like Gane was holding on to Kimura for half the round. That's what's happened once he finally gets out of, I want to say he was holding on to, he was like in the starting position of possibly of a Kimura. Like, I shouldn't say he had a Kimura. And then when he's no longer has the starting position of Kimura, like Volkov kind of just holds him down. Like, nothing really happened that much. I still like favored Volkov because he did land like a couple punches and he's on top. I don't really give Gane credit for like holding onto a guy's wrist, So I'm with you. Yeah, I'm not gonna say robbery, but I think I agree with you. I think it was fairly.
And it stings because unlike most heavyweight fights, this was not a meaningless fight. This had possible and immediate title implications. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially if like John Jones is not going to defend his title, or who knows. It's funny because Gane somehow improved his overall MMA game, where his takedown defense looked looked a little bit better. His get up game was much better. He added in some offensive wrestling. He had a little bit of that, but he was getting takedowns against Volkov. So I feel like his overall game was better, but his best attribute has always been his athleticism, his movement, his striking. It looked much worse. Like he stood right in front of Volkov during the striking exchange. It really surprised me.
Mm-hmm. And then their first fight, his speed was way too much for Volkov. Like he was bouncing into range, hitting him with a jab, getting out of range before Volkov could jab back with his 8 inches longer arms. His lateral, like Volkov, even though I picked Volkov to get the win in this fight, Volkov really had no answer for Gane's lateral movement in the first fight. Luckily, Gane had no lateral movement in this fight, so it wasn't an issue. Yeah, I completely agree that Gane felt older or more inert or just something. It was weird.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks for Volkov because I mean Gane's had those opportunities to fight for the title. He's fought for the title, I think 3 times because he won the interim and then he fought Francis Ngannou and
yeah, he's had 2 undisputed title fights basically.
Yeah. Volkov hasn't, and really at this point of his UFC career, this was like the best run he's been on. Like he's looked really good lately, and this would have been a nice win. You avenge a loss. I mean, I know Aspinall has already smoked him, but Aspinall smokes everybody.
Aspinall smokes everybody, and here's one thing that gives me, I mean, not hope. I'm not here to right the wrongs of the MMA world, but it gives me hope that justice will be done. The fact that Gane has already lost so badly to Jones, like this may be one of those situations where the UFC books these guys as if Volkov hadn't really lost going forward. Like it'll depend on what Jones does. Because if it comes down to fighting Aspinall, Gane has a better chance of getting that fight, obviously. But if it comes to fighting Jones, it's Volkov.
Yeah. I'm going to give Gane the matchup against Tom Aspinall just because, they haven't fought.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the big if John Jones retires, John Jones doesn't fight Aspinall. I mean, obviously, that is the fight to make.
It is the fight to make, but here's the funny thing, and this is going to just add fuel to the fire for all the people that think Jones is ducking Aspinall. I could see Jones wanting to fight one more time, but not wanting to fight until like next August or September. And so Aspinall and Gane, or Aspinall and
sure,
hell, even Volkov actually end up fighting in the spring or the summer. And it looks, again, to people that are inclined to believe this already, it looks like Jones is doing everything he can not to have to fight Aspinall, even if that's not what I really think the case is.
Yeah, I know. I don't under any circumstance think John Jones is scared of Tom Aspinall, but I really don't know what he's doing, and maybe it's just a as people have said countless times, it's just a ploy to get more money, and probably rightfully so. But the thing is, it's hard to, if John Jones actually does fight Tom Aspinall in like a normal time frame, say April, May, it's kind of hard to book Ciryl Gane. So I put Ciryl against Curtis Blades if that fight doesn't, if he doesn't get Aspinall.
Yeah, that works for me as well.
What are you doing with Volkov? So you said you might view him as like he didn't lose and still put him in a big matchup.
Yeah, I mean, what I have in my notes is kind of wait for the heavyweight title picture to settle a little bit. And I know that isn't the best thing for a post-fight show where we need to know an hour after he fought what we're doing with him. But in reality, if I'm in the UFC, I kind of don't do anything for 2 months. Wait for the holiday season to be over. Because whatever Jones said right after the Miocic fight, it's throwaway stuff. I mean, one, you know what I mean? Like, there's no reason to put any credence in what Jones said right after that fight, or in what Dana said right after that fight. Like, they're both habitual liars that also speak off the cuff a lot. Like, I don't blame them for it. I'm just like, wait a couple months, let everything settle. That's what I'm thinking with Volkov. Because he's got the other problem. He's been in the division so long.
Yeah.
He's been in the top 10 for so long that he and Jones almost need each other.
Yeah. You start getting the rematches and stuff. So to me, I thought of that. Like if he doesn't get a big shot like that, he has to start fighting rematches or take on somebody like way down, like a Marcos Rogerio de Lima or something like that. And it's like, do you really punch a guy like that? So I'm like, what rematch would make sense? He would want. How about the match he was winning until the closing seconds? Give me Derek Lewis, especially now because like I think a lot of people are realizing like Derek Lewis isn't what he was, but every match that goes on, that becomes more and more apparent. So you have to like do it now before everybody just goes like, oh, they give Volkov an absolute free win.
And it would be the funniest and saddest thing ever if the exact same thing happened again.
And you know what? If Derek, hear me out. If Derek Lewis fought Volkov and say, I don't know, what would he could somewhat okay end of March, fight night, and he knocked him out cold. You tell me that John Jones wouldn't jump on and go, dude, I want a legacy fight. What does Tom Aspinall do for me? How about the guy who has the most knockouts in UFC history? I want the guy. People say I'm scared of heavyweights. How about a guy that can, you have to be perfect against. If he touches your chin, you're out cold. That's the guy I want. People say I'm scared. I want the scariest guy in the division. And he calls out Derek Lewis. Speaking of big power punchers, Bryce Mitchell gets a TKO win over Gracie. I didn't want to talk about this fight. Go ahead, dude.
This fight sucked. And none of it is Mitchell's fault. This is exactly the kind of fight you want to put Mitchell in after he took a year off after getting a terrifying concussion, because he didn't have that material to spare. We want as much of his brain to survive as we can. So you give him the guy that's least likely to give him another concussion in the form of Gracie. And Mitchell did his best to make it interesting by willingly diving into his guard in every single round. I mean, it's hard not to when Gracie just basically jumps up on you like a koala bear climbing a tree and falls backwards. But he survived one moment of legitimate danger. And then in the third round, Gracie was cooked. He was so tired. I couldn't believe how slow he was throwing his first punch. And when Mitchell slammed him down, it stunned Gracie for like 2 or 3 seconds. And that was enough. Mitchell stapled his head to the canvas with elbows, and that's done. So it looked like about like you would think this fight would look.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it. It's funny because I think Gracie should stop doing MMA because he got like nobody else is going to give him the opportunity to willfully grapple with you. Gone for some takedowns himself, Mitchell put himself in these positions, and you still couldn't get the win. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody on the roster you'd be able to get a takedown on and submit, but generally speaking, most guys are going to play like the floor is lava. Got to stick away, try to strike from distance. To Mitchell's credit, he took him down, and he backed
guys that Mitchell has beaten. Like Dan Ige would have stood up and pity patted Gracie to death for 3 rounds.
Yeah, it would look like the Cobb Swanson fight.
Yeah,
and like people talk in the pre-fight talk like, oh, this guy's a deadly striker. I'm gonna strike when they shoot. Oh, this guy's a deadly grappler. I'm gonna grapple them. That they never do. To Mitchell's credit, he grappled them.
Yeah.
So we know Mitchell.
I think he slots right back in as a top 10-ish talent and one with a personality. This should be his time. Like, he's been on the shelf for a whole year. He comes back right after, a major Republican victory in national politics. 2025 should be the year of Bryce Mitchell. I'm giving him a step up, even though it's just beating Gracie. I'm giving him either Laron Murphy or Aljamain Sterling.
Wow. My man, I'm giving him a fight night main event just because of his, like, listen, say what you want about Bryce Mitchell. yes, he's like crazy, and yes, he's like there's some wackos in every party.
Absolutely.
He's my party's wacko. Like he's the one. Like every time he talks, like, oh, dude, stop saying you're Republican, please. Like,
Now, having said that, one of the reasons I can be so cavalier about what to do next with Mitchell is, I thought this. Well, I don't want to make any spoilers, but my biggest bull of the night is probably Ilia Topuria, because there were at least 3 top 10 quality featherweights on this night, and I think he destroys all 3 of them within 3 minutes. I think he might be able to beat all 3 of them on the same night, and that includes 2 top 5 guys.
Yeah, well, it's Ilia Topuria. He might be able to
it is Ilia Topuria, but I mean, when we just finished talking about gulfs between all-time resume, if you want to talk about gulfs between the number 1 and the number 2, 3, 4 people in a division in MMA right now, Ilia Topuria looked real good tonight.
Yeah, I saw. I don't know. Just Chris Wiz's comment made me think of this. So MMA Roasted tweeted that Bryce Mitchell refuses to fight at the Sphere because he thinks it's flat. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I'm getting. But anyways, what I was saying about Mitchell is like he has such a big personality, crazy personality. Like no matter how you feel about him, like you gotta comment, you gotta tweet his crazy shit he says. Like you gotta call him stupid and all that. But
here's the thing: I bear him no ill will at all because there's no malice. There's not a mean bone in his body. Like he's just saying what's on his mind. Like he's is apologizing to Joe Rogan for something mean he said about him like months ago. And then the next moment he's pulling out like the Gideon Bible he stole from his hotel room and giving an impromptu sermon. You're getting the top card on the Bryce Mitchell deck every moment, but it's not like he's out to hurt anybody. Like anybody's feelings. Like, he's just a simple crazy hillbilly dude that's got some crazy ideas.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's Hinata Moicano with even harder to understand English.
Yeah, Moicano's second language.
Yeah,
that was good. That was really good.
Yes.
So I'm with you, man. I'll give him a fight night main event. I'll give him Aljamain Sterling just because I had so much fun watching Sterling grapple tonight. I want to see it again.
Can we just skip to that one? Can we skip all the fights in between? Just skip straight.
You want to do it? Want to go to that one? Come back?
I'm kidding.
I don't mind. This one will be pretty quick. One of the closest lines on the card tonight was Doo Ho Choi versus Nate Landwehr. With Doo Ho Choi, I mean that was a line. That wasn't the result. Doo Ho Choi looked sensational tonight. He beat the shit out of Nate Landwehr. He ultimately winning by 3rd round TKO. Dude, talk to me about his striking.
Okay, his striking looked absolutely fantastic. I am going to throw a wet blanket over the proceedings. I don't want to take too much away from Choi because all Choi did tonight was the stuff that Choi did really well 7 or 8 years ago. It just seemed like he had turned back time. It's not like he unveiled any new tricks. I thought that version of Doo Ho Choi was gone. The guy that just had some of the best boxing in the division and the willingness to stand in the pocket and ply his boxing. He looked great tonight. But having said that, Landwehr looked absolutely horrible. Like I expected Choi to outstrike Landwehr badly anytime that they were toe to toe. But in picking Landwehr, I assumed there was some point in the fight at which Landwehr would break out of that and start doing his things and to, use a cliche, impose his will or impose his game plan. He never did. Like Landwehr looked absolutely awful. He didn't have the worst single performance on the card, but the worst single performance on the card was by a guy that shouldn't have been there at all and retired right afterwards. So, small consolation.
Oh, I don't know. Kron Gracie's up there, and Kron Gracie. We'll get to the cut list. He shouldn't be in the UFC anymore either. There's a couple of things I will slightly disagree. I think he's more defensively sound now than he was, 5 years ago. Or but more than 5 years ago, like 8 years ago.
He's as defensively sound on the feet as he can be, and still be allowed back into South Korea.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I like that he's adding grappling. Like he's getting takedowns. I mean, he's grappling like good. I mean, yeah, I think some of it, to your point, has to say about Landwehr. I mean, he was crucified him. Like that's not good. So that's the main card. Let's get to the prelims, which is actually a pretty loaded, especially name value on the prelims. The top prelim, two former title challengers, Anthony Smith and Dominic Reyes, two guys who could actually have wins over John Jones, believe it or not. Dominic Reyes is winning by second round TKO. Let's talk about Dominic Reyes real quick, and then we'll get to Anthony Smith. Dominic Reyes has now won 2 fights in a row. Are you starting to believe in Dominic Reyes?
No. And I feel bad that I don't, because again, there's nothing of the human element here. I want to cry every time he wins because he's so not jaded. You can tell that he is just thankful to the bottom of his soul every time he wins a fight in the UFC since being back. And a man that's been a top, I mean, he's been a top 10 fighter on and off for like almost a decade at this point. You don't find that kind of gratitude and groundedness in many of them. Like when he says, I know I was fighting for my job, you believe him. So
yeah,
on a human level, I love that Reyes is having this moment, even if it came at a cost tonight. But in terms of what he brings to the cage, I see maybe a little bit of a post-USADA boost in him, but he's also just run into, I mean, who has he beaten on this run? He lamped Dustin Jacoby, which
win.
It's an okay win, especially considering he knocked him out on the feet, and we're talking about the longtime kickboxer. But that's one of the ones, and I say this all the time, if they fight 10 times, I don't know how many Reyes wins and how many Jacoby wins, but it only looks like that once. And then here, I give him no credit for beating Smith. And again, it's nothing to do with Reyes. He can only beat the person they put in front of him, and they put someone in front of him that couldn't beat anybody. Like, I don't think Anthony Smith would have won a round tonight if you locked him in the cage alone for 15 minutes. It would have been all 10-10s.
Oh man, yeah, I'm with you. That I'm not believing in that Reyes. Like it's fun, it's nice. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sold yet. I want him to be good, like you are. I you know, his run to the UFC title, I thought he beat John Jones, but I still think it's always going to be. Remember Dominic Reyes, the guy who almost beat John Jones, not hey, remember Dominic Reyes, the guy who won a UFC title, 5 years after.
Even if Jones came back 3 months later and slaughtered him so bad that they didn't need a rubber match, it changes the whole narrative on his career. Yeah, agreed.
Let's talk about Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith tonight, and obviously, like it's a super sad story about his coach Scott Morton dying. Obviously, our condolences to him and the whole family. And the guy's crying walking into the cage, and I mean, I can only imagine what he's going through. That still doesn't change. Like his physical gifts are gone. Like all right, I want to say something, but I hope people don't take it the wrong way. And I'm, fuck it if they do. It kind of I'm not gonna say it because people will 100. Fuck it, I will. His coach dying is horrendous, terrible. I can imagine going through that, like horrendous. That's but it does give him a little bit of an excuse in a fight that he was going to get trashed no matter what.
Even as someone who picked Smith in advance of this fight, took a little flyer on him, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a good pick on my part. And I don't think any version of Smith would have had much of a chance tonight outside of Reyes making a big mistake.
And obviously having a heavy heart and all that makes it worse. It makes it harder.
Yeah.
So like it didn't make it harder tonight. He was still going to lose regardless. This reminds me that MMA does not have Hollywood endings. Because if this was Hollywood, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was Mark Gardy, but I could be wrong. Whichever referee kept screaming like, Anthony, you got to defend yourself. And I think it was Mark Gardy. And he's getting elbowed incontrollably. If this was Hollywood, he would have everything would have slowed down, and he would have looked around and see the referee yelling at him, and Dominic Reyes dropping hammers, and his face is getting busted up, and suddenly he just looks over out of the cage, and he like sees someone in the cage, and sees someone in the crowd. All of a sudden, he notices his coach's face, who says something like, "I believe in you, I love you," and then he would have came somehow recovered and knocked him out. But this isn't Hollywood. Instead, you get your freaking face elbowed into, and then you're sitting there in the cage with Joe Rogan a minute later with a mic in your face saying, "How do you feel?"
Okay, anytime there is a post-fight interview with a fighter who got TKO'd, especially when it is Daniel Cormier delivering it, I always cringe. I think they're a bad idea. I'm hoping that off camera, where we didn't see, there was some sort of like hand gesture thing with Mark Montoya, like, should we talk to him? Like, does he want to talk? Is like, maybe it looked like he was about to retire and they didn't want him to walk out without being interviewed. I'm hoping.
So he talked about that he's I think he said he's probably going to retire. When I think of Anthony Smith, I'm always going to think of a guy that I thought was a regional journeyman who, yeah, he was good, upper echelon for a journeyman on the regional show. But I remember when they signed him to the UFC, I was like, oh, that's cool. Anthony Smith's going to get like 2 fights in the UFC. Good for him. Oh. Maybe he gets, maybe he wins one. Yeah. Best case scenario, he has this unbelievable like improvement in his career and he becomes Gerald Burchard. Like that's, I thought, was the peak. Not in the wildest dream, but I think this guy was going to make a run, get in the top 10, make a run, get a title shot, end up being on the broadcast team and probably going to stick around in the UFC even after he retires. That's the first thing I'm going to think of Anthony Smith. The second thing I'm always going to think of is, and I know this is just, one of my favorite moments, is when the Hector Lombard situation when he's yelling and screaming at him, like, my name now. Like, to me, I think that was still like baddest things that's ever been done. How will you remember Anthony Smith this last we see him?
Man, it's funny you say that because there was a moment during tonight's fight where he was kind of turtled up on his knees and elbows at the base of the cage and just getting wailed on by Reyes. And I commented in the Sherdog Slack, I have seen way too much of Anthony Smith in this position, like Glover, John, and yeah, I can't let that define him, because at the same time, you mentioned that, I thought, oh, look, Anthony Smith is getting another chance in the UFC. He had that one fight during the whole Strikeforce takeover, and then he was headed back to Iowa, fighting Josh Neer and Barnes. Yeah, he made it to a title shot. He left some bodies in his wake, like Rashad Evans and Shogun Hua. And he's at the UFC desk now. If he had called it quits sometime before getting that call back, his post-fight career trek is like being a manager of a convenience store or something. Because the whole other thing is getting into coaching. He's always had Morton with him, but he and Morton have skipped from camp to camp a lot over the course of his career. The fact that he was in the UFC and made a good enough impression that he has revenue streams going forward and can take care of his family in a different way makes this a happy ending, even if the in-cage results were a super, super bummer tonight.
Yeah. So obviously we both were not that high on Reyes, but what would you do with him next?
Oh, what did I put down here?
I'll go while you look.
Oh, okay. I got it. I put down 2 names: Felipe Lins or Volkan Oezdemir. I had
Oezdemir too.
Yeah, Oezdemir is a guy that I thought was washed and picked up a decent win recently, kind of like Reyes himself, kind of like Smith before tonight. Sounds sensible to me.
We got to make up some time, so we talk about people that I thought was washed, and one of them was Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque had a flawless victory, clubbing and subbing Temba Garimbo in the very first round. Dropped him and then locked in a submission. Maybe he just lost to the top guys. Maybe he isn't completely shot.
I sure thought he was, not just because of the losses, but just the way he looked even in the wins. But here, this was the purest Vicente Luque performance ever. Like, catches an aggressive guy coming in with a flush shot and drops him, which is typically the only way that Luque really hurts people hard with a single strike. And once he grabs your neck, you can argue that there's no one better at the front headlock series finish in modern UFC history. Like, he's going to anaconda or Darce choke you really fast, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
I don't usually put much weight to this, but in the post-fight, he called for a fight with Jorge Masvidal, saying Masvidal's coming back. Usually I don't, give guys their wish. Luque deserves that. I'd put him on like a pay-per-view main card against Masvidal.
And that'd be a nice kind of consolation prize after, again, he was supposed to fight Nick Diaz tonight.
Yeah.
I like that just fine.
Before that, one of the most talked about prelims in a really long time, prelim fight. Aljamain, former champion Aljamain Sterling, took on 18-0 Movsar Evloev. Evloev is now 19-0, winning a unanimous decision. Dude, I was blown away with this fight. I love this fight. I was at a wrestling tournament all day.
Then you came home and watched more wrestling, and it was great.
I know. This is like when people talk about all-time great fights, no one's gonna bring up this fight, but this is one of my this will fall in my favorite fights. I love it.
And I feel the same way. All I called for was one thing. Like, I don't care who wins. I just want the funkiest fight in UFC history. I don't know if it was, but it's in the running.
It was pretty fucking good.
This is about as fun as you're going to find of a fight in the modern UFC that goes all 3 rounds and takes place 85% on the ground. And it was funky. Like, the positions they got into. He didn't get close to it, but when he was in the position, I'm like, is Sterling going to pull off a Suloev stretch? If he gives Movsar Evloev a Suloev stretch for his first career defeat, he is my fighter of the year. I don't care what else happens. And then
That's
twice, how many times have we seen Aljamain Sterling get put in a crucifix? Well, before tonight, 0. After tonight, twice.
Yeah.
Like, just incredible stuff. And we got to see a little bit different wrinkles out of these guys. Evloev has always been seemingly an undersized guy for the division. He looked 10 pounds of muscle heavier tonight. I thought they were going to be about the same size. Instead,
I wonder why.
Evloev looked bigger. Sterling, we've both talked about this. He is obviously a great wrestler, but he's typically gets most of his takedowns from close quarters. Most of his takedowns in MMA happen when he's already touching you, and he'll just drop and get a knee tap or a body lock, or take your back standing. He shot a couple of doubles from the outside that were smooth, beautiful, and finished beautifully. Taking Evloev all the way down. I did not expect that tonight. Even if I thought the wrestling was going to be a push, I didn't expect Sterling to have success shooting doubles from the outside. Incredible stuff.
Dude, I thought both guys looked sensational.
Yep.
I don't think Sterling in a loss loses stock. To me, what I love this fight is I love the battle of inches, and it was 1-1 heading into the third. Sterling looked great in third. I go, oh my god, Sterling's gonna win this fight. How the way it was going. There was a moment, it was about 2.5 minutes, that I don't think many people other than wrestlers, if people really into wrestling, would have caught this moment. Sterling is in on a single. They'll remember the big slam, but he's in on a single, and he's on the hip. He's trying to get circular on the hip, and Evloev, he kept doing it. But he's reaching over and he's grabbing the chin. And there's a move called the assassin where it's kind of hard to explain. When they try to take it back, you kind of hip all the way through it, and you put the guy on his back. And Sterling, I thought he was going to jump the hip, and I go, oh, he's going to do that, and he's going to get assassin, and that's how he's going to lose. He's going to hit him on the bottom. And instead, Sterling, instead of taking the easy one, which is that little short, knee slide to the hip, he lifts him straight up there, which is what you do when the guy's going for assassin. So they can't hip in if you take him off. And it was incredible. And I was like, oh, Sterling probably just won it with that one move. I was like, that was so brilliant. And then about 2 minutes later, about 30 seconds later, There's another scramble. He's in the same position, and he tries rushing to take his back, and instead he goes all the way, he goes all the way over, and Evloev pops his hips up, and then now he ends up on top, and he wins. And that battle of little inches gave Evloev the win. I love that shit. That's what those are the moments I love in MMA.
It's the best technical wrestling we've seen in the octagon maybe in a couple of years. I mean, I have to do some serious thinking and just looking at lists of fights to even remember, because you pointed out, not only was it fast moving, entertaining wrestling, but just the highest level stuff. Two guys that really, really, really know their shit and are in their physical primes. Great stuff.
So you said something, and you were going to save this for the Bulls, but you said Topuria is on your Bulls list because,
having said everything I just said, I think Topuria knocks either of these guys out in the first round. And here's the reason why. These guys, this fight was so much fun with the wrestling because these guys are who they are. And there are lots of things that make Topuria arguably the most dominant fighter in the sport right now.
Yeah.
But one thing that sets him apart from a lot of the pack at 145 is his ability to land punishing ground and pound in the middle of scrambles. Like the how hard he can hit people while still being positionally aware, maybe advancing his own position, maybe stopping a guy that's trying to scramble from doing what he wants to do. I saw these situations, and of course they'd fight differently if they were fighting him, but not that differently. They were just being themselves. And there are so many times he would have just staple gunned them, like in the middle of trying to do something.
I mean, the way I feel about Topuria, like, he can land a shot on anybody and put him out.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make me like drop the other guy's stock now. Like, I mean, he just knocked out Max Holloway, and I'm like, I'm still as high as Max Holloway has always been. I mean, Max Holloway's the man. He probably beats 90% of the roster at featherweight and lightweight. I'm going to slightly disagree. Not saying that Topuria wouldn't win. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But based on that grappling, that ability, and again, Topuria is we talk about his boxing because he's been knocking it out. But when we've seen him scramble, I mean, look what he did to Bryce Mitchell. Like, he can scramble himself. But based on what I saw from Evloev and honestly, even Sterling a little bit too, based on their wrestling heavy styles and what they can do, they're not an easy out for anybody. Again, I'm not saying I wouldn't favor Topuria, but like, I don't. It didn't like I would favor Topuria over both these guys, again, without like really digging into the tape study, but watching their performance doesn't make me like feel better about Topuria winning.
And it does me. So I guess we will, depending, we may find out sooner than later.
I mean, I'm assuming that's the matchup you're doing, Topuria versus
Evloev.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the guy's, if you can't sell 19-0 versus what is Topuria, like 16-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that fight. I'm trying to think about currently rumored type fights, not just book, but fights fights we expect to have on an X and O sense. I don't know if there's anything excites me more than Topuria versus Evloev right now. I mean, Makhachev and Sorokin's up there, but
yeah, and Topuria against the winner of that is my best fight of 2025 if it happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially
if Topuria beats, knocks out Evloev. Mm-hmm. We already talked about Sterling. We both gave him Bryce Mitchell. Did you have anybody else?
Yeah, I had Mitchell, or if for some reason that's not going to work, I thought Josh Emmett, the guy that starched Mitchell, about a year ago.
Okay. Before that, we had on paper, and we're going to have to stop picking up the pace a little bit on these prelims, but on paper, one of the best matchups, Randy Brown versus Brian Battle. We both picked Battle, but we both said that it's a much closer fight than the line says. I feel like we picked it perfect. Like, it was a really close fight. That said, I hate the way Battle won. Not that Battle won, but that he won a battle of attrition. Like, he won a fight that was, grinding and wrestling, fighting off takedowns. And why I hate it is this is the guy who won despite missing weight by 4 pounds
Exactly.
And would it have looked different if he had to cut those last 4 pounds?
That's the point, because occasionally you'll get people, and not like listeners of the Shillan and Duffy show, because all of our listeners are the smartest people in
Yeah,
the
of course.
world. But
Well,
you'll get
except
some
for
people
Bubs.
that are
Except for
like,
Bubs.
oh, yeah, like he didn't win because he was 3 pounds heavier. Like that didn't make the. No, it's not the weight. It's not. It's the fact that he didn't have to cut the weight that makes the
Yeah.
difference. I completely agree. If you won because of durability and cardio, and you had a 4-pound advantage of not of like
Yeah.
water weight not have to be shed 24 hours before or 36 hours before, that's an advantage. I don't know, and I don't know if that made the difference in the fight, but it was a super close fight
Yeah.
anyway. And more importantly, now we'll never know unless they fight again, at some point
Yeah.
down the road. So
A-
completely
And
agree.
I mean, Battle. I like Battle style. I mean, like the guy's a really skilled fighter. I really think he can make a decent run in the division. I mean, that's a really hard division, but I think he can make this run. Yeah, I'm not saying win a title or anything, but I think he can go pretty far. I think this could be a top 10 guy. That said, like, dude, I'm all for trying to play the bad guy, talking shit to the crowd and everything. But you need to have something you can talk shit on. And missing weight and winning a fight that's super close, like that was terrible, dude. Like his last fight, I was, he was talking shit to the whole crowd. Like that was awesome. This was the complete opposite. This felt like so forced and no. And I will have a little bit more of that when we come to the dude seriously, because he said something that really, like, what the fuck, dude. I'm giving him Stephen Thompson next. And what I like about that matchup, he has to make weight if he's fighting Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson's not doing the
you know
he's
what?
not fighting guys miss weight.
Booking him against Thompson would be amazing, just as a little fuck you to battle, like just kind of without having to say anything, just underscoring, oh, now you're gonna make weight, or you're walking away with no check at all.
Yeah.
Not 70% of your check, because you made some noise about Brown getting some of your pay. You're going to get none of your pay, because Thompson will get in the old church bus and drive it right on back to Simpsonville, and be just fine with his life.
That's right. All right. Listening to the freaking Gaithers on his way down there. Before that, speaking of people talking about names, one of the biggest name on the card, former middleweight champion Chris Weidman, took on Eric Anders. Anders winning by second round TKO. There's been guys, and we've done previews, and there's been guys I say I don't have a really good read on. Anders, I've always felt like I've had a really good read on, and it's been three kind of obvious things. One, he's not the athlete that the broadcast would pretend he is. Two, he's not this fantastic striker that the broadcast pretends he is. Like, he can strike, but he's not friggin' Anderson Silva, a big power puncher or something, like not Derek Lewis. And three, he's a way better wrestler and grappler than he gets credited with.
Yes.
Like,
it's almost like 4 years of tackling people may have helped his wrestling and not his striking. Who knows?
Right, he's played football or something? I didn't know that.
Yeah, like some little place up in New England, I think.
Was he with what was that team that freaking Dominic Reyes was on, Stony Brook or some shit
Stony
like
Brook?
that? Right? He was at a small college like that, right? Not the big. Right?
Yeah, he was at Stony Brook. No, Reyes was at Stony Brook. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. If you know what college Eric Anders played football for, let us know. It's probably like some school of like trucking and welding that like just fielded a team. Anyway.
Remember the last time we did this little rant, and then there was someone in the comments like, someone's like, I think we did it on a preview, and then someone in the comments like, guys, did he play for University of Alabama? He played in the national championship. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, yeah. Like, the broadcast doesn't mention that freaking 900 times every time he fights.
If that guy ever shows up in our chat again, I'll tell him all about Brian Stan's time in the Air Force. That'll make him right.
Yeah. Tim Kennedy being in the military. Yeah. Chris Weidman, this fight, it was just such a like switching tides, where it quickly, like, Weidman was looking good. He actually dropped Anders, was doing well. He won the first round, and then it just looked like the Luke Rockhold fight, where it just switched on a dime, and next minute he was on the bottom and he couldn't get up, and he was getting his face blasted in.
Yeah. And there was a time, like that little transitional period after the Rockhold fight, where all of his fights look like, all of his losses looked like that. He would look fine against, Jacare or Romero, or okay, Ray has just kind of crushed him, but he would look fine against top 10 fighters. And then all of a sudden, all the wheels would fall off his wagon. He'd be tired. All of a sudden, he's moving around like he's never fought before, and this guy is killing him. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if Wyman is retiring, but I mean, someone's got to be having a conversation with him. Wyman is my kind of guy. I mean, he's an American wrestler. He's from the Northeast. Like, he's the people that I hung out with all day today. My closest friends. Like, if Chris Wyman's that guy. If I was friends with Chris Wyman, I'd be begging him to stop fighting. Yeah, he's 40 years old. Like, you're fighting on the prelims, losing to Eric Anders. Like, really?
I could not possibly agree with you more. And obviously, he doesn't owe us anything. He doesn't owe us legacy or entertainment or anything. He owes his own family, whatever he thinks is the best life he can give them. But if he is not financially set at this point, can they bring Chrome Gracie back to fight him? I'm just tired of seeing him getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Bring Hollis Gracie back to fight him. That's at least like close to the right weight class. Yeah.
There you go. I was going to go on a thing about how you going to remember Wyman, but we'll skip that. But he didn't announce his retirement, so if he does from now and in the preview show or something, or next recap, we'll give our due to him. Another prelim fight that we were super excited at. Cody Durden took on Joshua Van. Joshua Van winning a unanimous decision. Before I get to that, I want to talk about the judges' scorecards. I think two of the judges did not give a 10-8 round.
That is correct.
Then what the fuck's a 10-8 round? Is the second and the third? I went 30-25. The first round could have went either way, but I gave it for Van. I thought his late surge gave him the round, but I'm okay if someone gave it to Durden. But I get a second and the third round, 10-8 rounds. The second round, if that's not a 10-8 round, what the fuck's a 10-8 round?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, none of Sherdog's official scores gave a 10-8 round there either. And
what the fuck, guys?
I don't know. I disagree.
Put in the chat. Tell them what the fuck, guys.
There are three normally very reliable guys.
Who are they?
Yeah, it was Jay Petrie, Brian Knapp, and Tristan Critchfield. Three of the longest tenured.
I don't know any of those bums. Jay Petrie, Tristan.
Jay Petrie was never my friend.
And Brian Knapp. They're all really. Knowledgeable.
They're all super good guys, and they're all normally super good scorers. But yeah, I had it 30-26 Van, which one of the official scorers did. But yeah.
Okay, so I'm assuming you didn't give it to any third,
not in the third. Although it was borderline as well.
Yeah, so I put you in the bum category with those three guys too.
I'm a bum for multiple reasons. I put Bob Simpson's quote on here. I picked against the Houston fighter, and not only did I get the actual result wrong, I got the whole. And you and I both talked about this. I care about seeing the fight accurately more than getting the actual result right, because any silly thing can happen. But I said before, like, just Van isn't mature enough in.
They shine. Ninja Kitty is funny.
Ninja Kitty's throwing daggers in here.
Jay Petrie catches strays for no reason.
Van has all the tools, but he just hasn't put them together yet. Fighters who go into a fight against Van with a clear idea of what they want to do, i.e., more veteran fighters usually are going to give him fits until he turns a corner and kind of matures as a fighter. And he has his most mature performance. He didn't come out too slow. He didn't blow his gas tank. He didn't throw tons of ill-advised strikes. He, in fights where, like, a lot of times it feels to me like he's looking to wrestle when he should be striking or strike when he should be wrestling. There was none of that tonight. And because of that, he kind of thoroughly dominated a top 10-ish quality talent. I picked it wrong. So I'm actually broadcasting tonight from an undisclosed location in Oklahoma. I've been kicked out of Texas for picking against Van so egregiously.
Yeah, I'm all in on Van. What I love, one, he started faster than he actually might have won the first round. Like I think one of the judges actually gave him the first round, so it's like holy shit, he actually won the first round on one of the judges' scorecard. But dude, his boxing is so freaking crisp. His body works is so good, and he's so young.
Yep.
I'm gonna make two statements and tell me how put on the crazy scale. How crazy are these statements? I'm completely sold on Joshua Van. I think he's good. I think he's the future. Ready? UFC champion.
I don't think that's crazy. And the reason I don't think it's crazy is because you probably have 6 to 8 years for it, not for it to come true, but before we could conclusively say that it's not going to come true. Like I'm thinking of the people at the top of the division right now. They're all over 30. None of them are even going to be in the picture by the time Josh Van is ready to fight them. So what you're really saying is you like him better than Tatsuro Taira and other guys in this division in their early 20s.
He's
or who might join the division at some point along the way.
So he could lose to those guys right now, but I think he just has the highest ceiling because here's my next crazy statement. His rise, like super young, gets a loss, but getting some wins, showing flashes. You see his boxing so crisp. He reminds me of somebody. He reminds me of a young Max Holloway.
I don't hate that at all. I mean, different body type, and because of his body type, people expect more power out of him, and he does probably deliver a little more one-shot power. But the fact that what really wins fights for him is when his combination punching, especially to the body, just kind of starts to take over and he overwhelms people. That's pure Max Holloway.
Yeah. I'm completely sold. So I want to matchmake him. I'm stepping up. He's 23 years old, but he's getting a huge step up. I'll put him against Steve Erceg.
Oh, I don't hate it.
Erceg lost 2 fights in a row. He needs to step down in competition. Van needs to step up. Let's do it.
Beautiful.
Co-main of a fight night.
Yeah.
Did you have any other names yourself?
I did. In fact, I had the same pair of names out for him as for Kai Asakura. I'm giving him a former top 10 guy who's kind of fallen off in the last year or so, like Alex Perez or Tim Elliott. I thought like they're tricky guys that can actually absolutely turn him back if he's not ready for prime time yet, or if he is, he probably beats him in a pretty spectacular way. Like, can't you just see him crushing either of those guys with a body shot in the first round?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden he's a top 5 fighter. Yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of top 10 fighters, former top 10 fighter Michael Chiesa took on Max Griffin. Chiesa winning by 3rd round sub. Chiesa just showed me he still has something left in the tank. I thought he was completely washed. He's not. He could still neutralize people's games.
He as many Michael Chiesa fights as you and I have broken down together, both before and after. That's the first time I think either of us has used that word. And I wish I had thought of it 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Because, Chiesa often kind of nullifies what his opponent can do until he gets a chance to do what he can do. Yeah. And here, for what it's worth, this wasn't pulling anything out of a hat. He was winning pretty much the whole fight. Like, I had him up 2 rounds to none when he took everything to its logical conclusion. So, this is a theme for this card. It's a theme for this entire year, but fighters that we had thought were some flavor of washed, just finding that fountain of youth. And I'm happy to have Michael Chiesa back because he's always been somebody whose style has been very enjoyable for me to watch.
What amazes me about it is how people view Michael Chiesa. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's been top 10 in the world, maybe I don't know if he was top 5, but high, like top 7 or 8, something like that, in the world, in a very loaded weight class, when he's a poor athlete. He's not a good striker. His wrestling, pedigree is above average. And he's fought in, like I said, he's fought in one of the deepest division. And then people are telling me that Bo Nickel's not a lock to be a top 10 guy.
Oh, and you're talking about Nickel in one of the most wide open divisions and easiest ones to break into the top 10. Oh, and by the way, Chiesa was doing a lot of that in a division where he had a weight cut so ridiculous that I think it actually hurt him as much as it helped him.
Yeah, it could have. I'm giving Gessa. Like, this was tough. I was like, do I want to face him against an up and comer? And then I was like, you really have two options. You face him up and comer, or you face him against you don't put him against a Max Griffin. You face him up and comer, or you face him against like another guy who has a name but like kind of washed, and then find which guy, or not washed, but like ended their career. I'm giving him that rematch against RDA.
I was worried that you were going to talk about like a serious, like young up and comer, but I'm on the same page as you because I'm giving them just slightly deluxe versions of Max Griffin, like current or former borderline top 10 guys that are definitely on the tail end of their career. I had Muslim Salakava and Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos.
Okay.
Because also on top of that, in either of those fights, we're probably either getting Chiesa just lamped or one of those two guys getting choked out with a quickness. So it has the kind of entertainment value that kind of buoys an undercard as well.
Speaking of guys getting lamped and former borderline top 10 guys, Clay Guida does he have the record now for most losses? Was that what that was?
He was on the doorstep of it like a year ago. He probably has the most losses in UFC history because he has almost as many total appearances as Miller, and Miller's been a lot better.
Yeah, and don't quote us on that. So if we get that wrong, but
if we're right, quote us on it. But
cool, yeah, absolutely. And obviously we're right. Like we don't ever say things wrong. But Clay Guida lost to Chase Hooper, losing by first round sub. I mean, Hooper is super good on the ground, and I think it's just a reminder that do not give up on young fighters because dude's 25 and he looks fantastic right now. Again,
but do give up on extremely old fighters.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Clay Guida, so like take it for what it was worth. But I'm rooting for Chase Hooper. Like, I hope he continues. I hope he continues.
Same here. Like, a lot of people chuckled at Hooper showing up so young, and again, basically having to learn to be a professional fighter under the brightest possible lights. Like, he got picked out on Dana White Contender Series when he was like 5-0. If he hadn't been, he's probably fighting in like, Titan or Island fights or something for another 5 fights, and we don't see his growing pains. Yeah, it's just the path has sort of made the man, but I don't wish him ill at all. He's a whole lot of fun, and I'm a guy that always kind of likes throwback specialists. So I want him to learn how to wrestle and strike exactly well enough so that he can stay in the UFC, and then just keep being Chase Hooper. Aside from that,
and the first fight of the night, let's make this super brief. Kennedy Nzechukwu beat Lucas Bresky, winning by first round TKO.
I didn't watch it. Take it away.
Oh, there you go. And Nzechukwu is pretty good at heavyweight, and Bresky is not. So, and Kennedy made it look easy. So there you guys have it. We've covered all 14 fights, one of the deepest cards, not just number wise, but names wise and quality of fight wise. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's do Dude Seriously. We never do Dude Seriously first. Do you want to
go? In taking my notes, I always forget to write down Dude Seriously candidates. So why don't you go first, and if I can add anything, I will.
First of all, Chris Weidman walking out to I'm proud to be an American. I'm all for like pro America, but dude, you're like one of the guys that have like a set walkout song like that people get excited for. Like, don't mix it up. Dude, seriously. Same fight. How about I don't know, not the camera guy, but the guy who's in the back doing the board who switches between cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, seriously, you switch cameras to not show the Anders knockout of Weidman because you took like an angle behind Anders for some reason. So all of a sudden the referee jumps in without us seeing what shots land on Chris Weidman. Like, dude, seriously. Brian Battle. How about Brian Battle complaining about being in a clinch battle matchup when he initiated the clinch like 90% of the time? Like, dude, seriously. And my last one, I'm going to go back to Brian Battle. Like, dude, you complained about how much money Randy Brown took from you when you missed weight. No. he gave you money because he could have just said no and you got paid nothing. Like, so, dude, seriously?
He gave you 70% of your
That's
your
right.
paycheck.
Dude, seriously? Do you have any?
I can't even think of one. Like, I will do better next time.
Okay, that's fine. It's late. We're saving some time. Let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and Bears are a stock market reference. You want to be on the Bulls list. You don't want to be the Bears. We do it 3-2-1, hockey style. Well, let's go positive. Let's go Bulls. I'll let you go first.
Okay.
So these are people. This is the list you want to be on.
Yes. Bulls. Vicente Luque. There are a number of fighters on this card, as we just discussed, that to all observers appeared to be shot or on the verge of being shot. Several of them did really well on the night. So Luque kind of stands in for me for a group that would also include, like, you know, Dominic Reyes and Michael Chiesa and so forth. But Luque did the most shocking job of it just because he looked so crisp. Like, he waited until this point of his career to have the perfect Vicente Luque fight. Yeah. Hurt the guy on the feet based off of his own aggression, then take it to my world, and this thing is over in seconds. That's Vicente Luque in a nutshell. So yeah, he gets that. Doo Ho Choi. Again, kind of like Luque, it's not just that he's still around when I thought he might be gone by now, but the way he won. And while part of that is to blame on Lamware, part of it is just that Choi looked incredibly crisp and stuck to not the classic Doo Ho Choi game plan, but one adapted for the 2020s that might let him actually string together a few wins in this division. When you look at some of the people that Nate Landwehr has beaten in fairly recent memory, like, Choi picked up some momentum with this. Good night at the office for him. My number one, Josh Van. Again, when you even have the most shameless Houston homer in MMA media picking against you, and you put on that dominant a performance, it's a stock up moment. When you get people like Keith Shillan saying that you're going to be a future champ of what he thinks might be the best division in MMA, you've made a convert. Wow. So Josh Van is the biggest bull of the night.
Most fun. I don't know if it's the best division, but most fun. And not the deepest division, but yeah, I actually agree with all three of them. I had all three of those on my list, so I'll add some different ones. I'm gonna go with, if you were a baseball player and you had a 357 batting average, you're in the Hall of Fame. And we had someone who had a 357 batting average tonight because there was 14 opportunities in the post-fight speeches. This guy was mentioned 5 times. How about Jesus got 5 shout-outs on the post-fight? So that's not bashing Jesus. I'm Christian. Yeah. But good night for JC getting 5 call-outs.
And one of the last ones was kind of in the balance. Like when Bryce Mitchell paused for a moment on the back of naming who's the only one that can fix America. There were 2 obvious, like, top candidates, but there were any one of about 10 names wouldn't have shocked me too badly.
Especially with Bryce
like
Mitchell.
If he'd been like, you know, RFK Jr. is going to take the fluoride out of our water, he's the real hero, I wouldn't have been that shocked. So yeah, good night to Jesus. Yeah.
My number 2, I mean, this guy practically walked on water tonight. Alexandre Pantoja. I mean, I don't really like to go to the top of the card, but I mean, what Pantoja is doing right now. I mean, we both know how dangerous Asakura was. I mean, some people won't give him credit because he has been in the UFC, but the guy's really good, and Pantoja absolutely smoked him. And my number 1, yeah, it was a really close fight. It could have went either way, but I'm gonna go with. I'll give 2 guys. And it's the guys that were 18-0 are both now 19-0, and that's Shavkat Rakhmonov. But even more, most of our Evloev, but they both turned 19-0, and they're probably both fighting for a title next. So really good night for those people who came into the night as 18-0. Let's get to the Bears. The Bears list is the list you don't want to be on. This is people whose stock is going down. We still do it 3-2-1. I'll go first. How about the UFC security? Joe Rogan had to throw out that they did not know who Bilal Muhammad, and they tried stopping the champion after he got called in from Shavkat and Joe Rogan. You know, probably the most famous person on earth, or one of the most famous people on earth, calling him in. UFC security slacking. I'm sure it's more of the T-Mobile Arena security. Yeah. But my number 2, his performance tonight was not bad, but it's everything else that goes with it, and it's Aljamain Sterling. He's 35. He's now got losses in 2 divisions. He's lost 2 out of the last 3. You know, he was right there on the cusp of possibly getting a title shot. Now he's kind of falling behind. He's up there in age. He's got to rebuild. So Sterling went down. And my number 1, and I hate to say it, I hate to like beat a dead horse, but Anthony Smith. I mean, he's lost 5 out of his last 7 fights. He looks toast. So. What do you have?
I certainly agree with all of those. All I'd throw in is got to throw in Cody Durden, because Durden is exactly the kind of tough, skilled veteran that I expected to give Van Fitz tonight, and he just got overwhelmed. It's a rough night for him, because as a guy that's like 30 or 31 himself, I think he's caught between generations now. He was probably never a future champ, but his chances to really become a fixture in the top 10, the younger generation is already coming up behind him and kind of brushing him aside. All the other ones are just really, really obvious, and they're people that shouldn't have been there at all. Smith, Weidman, Gracie, like, this literally should not have had a fight at UFC 310 tonight. I'll throw in Clay Guida, because you know what? Guida has been around so long, he could probably, when you think of how long Sam Alvey coasted on, it's kind of the same guy, a guy that was never a serious contender, but had enough of a personality that casual fans kind of knew him. And you think of how long he coasted after he had nothing to offer. Guida could settle into something like that. But if you're just getting finished in 3 minutes, then you're not even really having fun back and forth bangers that they can say that about you and justify your presence on the card. Guida looked like a guy that's about done fighting.
And finish. Most 43-year-old guys finish in 3 minutes, so give a little bit of slack. All right, let's do the cut list. I got a shitload.
Shillan and Duffy show brought to you by Hims. All right.
I got a shitload of people on the cut list. I got 5 guys. How many you got?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, okay, counting Smith, 4, 5. I guess I have 5 as well.
Yeah, and I did say 5 guys, and yeah, there was no female fights on this card. But I'll throw a name out, and you tell me if you have it on your list. My first one, now 1-5 in the UFC, Lucas Bresky.
Gone. He was the first one on my list as well.
We give permission for the UFC to cut him. Give me a name.
Clay Guida.
Man, dude's like 87 years old. Lost 3 in a row. He was on my list. This one hurts me. I'd rather him just retire, but he's now 3-8 of his last 11 fights. He's 40 years old. He's had 30 surgeries. Chris Weidman. I mean, his body has just failed him.
Yep. He was the next one on mine. The next one on mine was Anthony Smith. But like I said, if he doesn't retire, I think he should probably be done anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we could have 3, maybe 4 retirements on the guys on this list. I think Guida, Weidman, Anthony Smith could all retire. And you know what? I don't think we're going to see this guy again. I think we're going unanimous. I think we agree on all of them. I'd say it's time to get rid of Kron Gracie.
And it's as simple as not signing him again, because this was the 4th fight. Almost always that is the end of your contract. So all they have to do is not sign him again.
Yeah, Ben, do we have the awards?
I am certain we probably do. Give me just a moment here. Yes, there is no fight of the night. There are 4 performances of the night.
Oh, I'm surprised. I thought Sterling and Evloev might be in the running. Or even, I mean, there were some dull moments, but Shavkat and Ian Garry got pretty fun at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with the 4 performances?
Off the top, I think all 4 of these people deserve a bonus. The question would be, is there anyone else that deserves it more than one of them? And I don't think so. Nope.
Yeah.
I like these.
Yeah. Pantoja. Pantoja had to get something.
Pantoja is one of them.
Okay. So these, if you were given 4, these are the 4 you're saying you'd pick.
These are the 4 I'd pick.
Okay. Luque.
Luque is as well. I mean, when you walk in as an underdog, flatten the guy in 15 seconds, get the money.
So there was a lot of stoppages. So there are some people, like Michael Chiesa had a good showing, and Kenny and Chukwu had a good showing, and Chase Hooper, but I'm gonna go Josh Van.
Van did not.
Okay. All right. And my last one, I'm gonna go do Ho Choi.
And Choi did not.
Okay. So who did get him?
Chase Hooper and Kennedy Zechukwu in your first 2 fights of the night.
So they won. Okay, I'm cool with that. Like
I'd have to look back, or I say look back. I'd have to ask Jay Petrie, is this the first time in modern UFC history, like since the advent of the current bonus system, that the first 2 fights of the night both got a post-fight bonus?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's yeah, what about that? So yeah, it was a pretty banging card. What did you give your grade?
I'd give it an A-. There was just enough kind of bad like judging and reffing crap to sour just a little bit. But aside from that, this card, we said off the top on the preview, it's one of the deeper pay-per-view cards of the year, and it pretty much delivered up and down the card.
Yeah, I agree. I think a B+, A-. I'm good. I was pretty entertained. I mean, the prelims were absolute fire. I mean, the main event always holds a lot of weight. That was great. The co-main event, I mean, it was a little dull in the beginning, but it really picked up near the end. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. I go like a B+ or A-. Hardest question always is the listener of the night. Ben, who you giving the listener of the night to?
I gave the listener of the night. I awarded it in the chat before we actually even started, like during the countdown.
Okay.
Ninja Kitty made some reference to Ranger Stott at UFC 15.
Nice. Very nice.
You remember when he showed up, said, I'm going to prove that Ranger combatants belong in the UFC. And he had to fight Mark Kerr.
Yeah. Was that UFC 10?
10?
Oh, was that far as 15? Oh yeah. 10 was Mark Coleman's. Yeah. Okay.
So for me, it's Ninja Kitty, even though it was a crowded field, really fun night of chatting with everybody, except for the dude that left when we said we didn't think Jones was scared of Aspinall.
That's what he said. He said, "I'm leaving."
But yeah, said good night, LOL.
So yeah, there was a lot of good listeners. My listener tonight. This is I didn't know if you knew this, Ben. I'm not going to go with one of our usual listeners. I'm going to go with someone who came in tonight as a special guest. I don't know if you saw him in the chat, but he actually wasn't commented, but he's one of the viewers. It was rock and roll legend, Hall of Famer Eric Clapton is my listener of the night. He's a big fan of the Shillan and Duffy show. So with that, this is when if we were really professional, we'd have Layla playing us out.
We'd be getting copyright struck within like 5 minutes.
Well, all right, we're gonna have to have Ben. Ben's got those guitars there. Play it out, man. There you go. Grab one of those things and play us out. So there you guys have it. That was UFC 310. We do it deeper than anybody, we believe. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We'll be back last card of the year. UFC. I don't even know where it's going, but it's Covington versus Buckley. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of fun build up this week. We'll be breaking down all those on the preview show, and we'll be back a week from now doing the recap. So thank you guys. I got to be at a wrestling tournament. I got to leave in like 3.5 hours. I really got to go to sleep. So thanks so much. See you next time.